We are kind of running very late, so we're going to start the next session right away. It's on ideas to Inception, the lean startup philosophy, where the panelists, based on their experience, will tell you some concepts about how to be, make a viable product without too much of wasted effort and with constant feedback from the customer. May I invite the speakers on the dais, please? Nischal, Vishwas, Girish, and Manash.
Perfect. So I think from the very face of the audience, I understand we are all hungry. But having said that, this session to me is a very interesting session, right? So what we'll do is, there were a lot of things that are planned. We'll cut that short. We'll get straight to the meaty part of the discussion, right? So just to give you a quick background about this panel discussion, how many of us really know this lean startup methodology? Just a raise of hands. Have you ever heard of it? Yeah, one hand? Perfect. This is what I expected. No, and I'm very glad that this is the situation, because this is exactly what the panel is going to do. Give you a brief background about it, and we're going to discuss how it's going to be used in our story, right? Now, typically, right, I work with a lot of software products companies in India as a consultant, as an advisor, etc. And most of the companies that I'm working with across analytics, ERP, mobility, cloud are all seeing phenomenal growth. But the growth comes for a few years, and then it's suddenly question is, how do I go further? I had a few customers, or I have a few customers. I have an X revenue. I am growing at 40%, but now it's slowing down. How many of us face the challenge of not knowing how to grow our business? Superb. More hands, right? That's the whole objective. Now that's where this whole concept of lean startup philosophy and methodology comes in, right? It's providing a framework. It says it's got a scientific approach to the way we look at growing a startup. It says it's got a very mechanical, well-defined framework-led approach to new product development. It's got the concept of validated learning, right? Which says, do not wait for your product to start. Let's evolve it. Let's be closer to customers. Let's see how we can evolve our customers, right? Sounds kind of simple, right? I mean, we know these concepts. And if you do all these things, what do? You basically minimize your uncertainty in business, right? Now the concept, we all know, right, that if I'm closer to my customer, if I evolve my product, it's all going to happen. Yet what we saw in the previous presentations was there are a lot of challenges. Reaching out to new customers, funding, knowing whether this customer, the product is the right product, should I even spend more on it or not? How do we overcome these challenges and be able to answer ourselves what's the right way to grow my business? That's what the philosophy is going to discuss, right? So what I would like to do is request all the panelists to give you a quick introduction about the product that they deal in and the market that they deal in. Once we have that, it will set the context for you to be able to relate to those products, and we'll move into the philosophy and how they've successfully used it to grow their business, right? Vishwas, I'll just like to start with you.
Can you hear me? Hi, I'm Vishwas Mudagal, and I'm the CEO of GoodWorkLab. And GoodWorkLab is outsourced product development company. We help a lot of startups from the Bay Area and the India and across the globe to build MVPs, to build lean startups, agile methodologies. So we help them with user experience, mobile application software, and the entire gamut of how to take a product idea and build it a product and go to the market and scale. Myself, I've been into the products game for a long time. Being a serial entrepreneur, building products over and over again. So that is the value we bring to the table for companies to use their expertise, basically.
Sure, thanks. Manash, can you tell us about a bit of your cloud product?
Okay. Good afternoon, friends. I guess it's good afternoon, right? So I'm Manash Chaudhuri. I am the CEO of a cloud-based software enterprise software development company. It's called Corelynx. And I'm also the CEO of a company which is a cloud-based CRM or a customer management software called Converge Enterprise. We have been working mostly as the CTO role for any kind of company organization for helping them out building their product from the initial grassroots level and then giving them the MVP, as Vishwas was mentioning. At the same time, we are also offering the full funding cycle as well as the channel marketship and building the market distribution solutions for them as well. And based on those all thoughts, so we launched our own product, Converge Enterprise, last year. And it has been an interesting journey altogether. And as a part of this lean startup conversation we are having today, I will be able to explore and will share some of my experience while we are going through this journey. Thank you.
Thank you. Girish, just a quick introduction about the product.
Hi, I'm Girish. I run a company called Greytip Software. We provide HR and payroll solutions on the cloud to small businesses, mostly domestic. We have about 2,000 customers using the application, mostly across India. That's what we do.
Fantastic. So I can see a lot of people coming in, which is great. Okay, a quick question. How many of you, since you're a product company, I believe a lot of us are from product company representatives, right? Use a very scientific methodology to start up products, right? I'm trying to make this more interactive, right? Which means, yes, you estimated the market size, saw what's the business potential for you, saw how much the addressable opportunity for you, whom can you partner with, a database of your potential customers at the very starting stage. Did anybody really do this? 2 hands, yes. And how many of us did not do this? Precisely, yeah, that's the whole point. Now, the philosophy, however, says that there should be a more scientific approach, right? And that's what I would like to take the view of somebody who provides these services, an expert in this, who will be able to guide us how they're useful. And 2 of some of the successful product companies and how they started up their product story, and did they really use a scientific approach or was it a gut feel? Because that is very important for us when we are planning our next stage of growth, right? So Vishwas, just to give you a brief background about this startup philosophy of lean theory.
Right. There is so much I can talk about, you know, the whole plethora of things that one needs to do, you know, before they come up with an idea and take it to the market and stuff, right? Just because of the time constraint. So let's stick to a couple of things. We all know that a startup, when it looks like to start something, we have to first solve a problem in the market, right? That is the most important thing that we're going to do, right? Solve a problem in the market. And you've done all your work, you know, before people used to do, you know, huge business plans and stuff like that. Lean philosophy has thrown all that thing out, and basically we brought something called a business canvas model, right? So, you know, and then we call something called a lean canvas. So what it says is that before we used to raise funds in millions of dollars and then go to the market and spend like 2-3 years in building a huge product, go to the market, and ultimately companies used to fail. Because they used to probably try to build a sofa, by the time when they go to the market, it is a chair, right? Because it's taken so much time, but it functions as the same. But what happens in the market is something else, right? And the market is moved on. So what lean philosophy does now is, it is what we call as incremental steps, what we call as continuous deployment. So we take the minimal viable product that is required at this point in time, 1 or 2 features that are most critical for the product to succeed at this point in time. We build that out quickly, and we don't want to look at perfection. What we look at is something that can work, we can take it to the market and get feedback. And that feedback can be in terms of the revenue you're going to make, in terms of Google Analytics reports you're going to make, in terms of the number of hits you're going to get. You know, it depends on what your business needs, the data set, right? And that is what we call as a validated learning. Through those experiments, you keep on adding to it. Every week, you know, you use agile methodologies like a Scrum and extreme programming. Every 2 weeks, every month, you go and you put the next version of your product into the market, right? So that is what is lean all about, you know, to experiment these things. And in between, when things are not working out, we use something called pivots. Pivot is an experiment which is not in the nature of the work that you're doing, but still, you know, it suddenly works. So for example, the same thing happened with Groupon. Groupon was you know, doing something else, and it was not getting traction. And one day they did an experiment. They put up a coupon on their blog, and there were 20 people taking that coupon in one day itself, and these guys thought, man, this is something going on here. And then they changed their business strategy, and today they're like the largest coupon management in a company in the world, right? So these pivots are very, very important, that whenever you get stuck somewhere, you try to scientifically try to bring in certain experiments.
Great. You touched a few points on validated learning and all. We'll probably come back. I'm sure the audience would want to know how does it really work. So we'll come back to it a little later on that, right? But in the meanwhile, Manash, if you can share with us your actual practical story, right? So this is a good philosophy, and of course, as Vishwas was saying, it works very well for a lot of startups. It's a theory that can be put in place to have a successful growth strategy. But during your journey, and especially when you started off this product, did you consciously put some of these methodologies in place? Or probably sometimes more subconscious, right? And so if you share your story of startup and how you metricize the whole process for yourself.
I will take 2 minutes of your time and take you to a journey from 2001 till 2005 and how things evolved and how I got into this lean startup methodology more vehemently than ever. It was in the year 2001 when the market was on a peak, and then it was before 9/11, of course. So I used to be one of the consultants for NEA Ventures. We started a company called Say2X. It was more of a B2B engine for delivering documents. Because over the period of time, what has happened since 1960 till now, most of the B2B documents are delivered through something called EDI, or Electronic Data Exchange. So nothing evolved after that. So we built our old RosattaNet platform, or we now call it the EBXML. Sorry, I was one of the founding member of EBXML then. So we formed this business layer of communicating between the business using an XML, and we were a little bit ahead of the time that time. We started up, the concept was good, we launched the product, Cisco was the first customer, everything was good, and came 9/11, the whole VC market dried up. So we consumed money, and then for us that time, we were going with the concept that we will build a product, big bang, of course, like this, because in a B2C, the concept's a little different. For a B2B, the things are different. We'll get to that. But we build the product, and then we will showcase the product to all the big fives, and then see how it matures. So as the money dried up, we were just contemplating what should be the next wave, because once the entrepreneur bug hits you, you have to keep on trying, right? So you just cannot go back to job, because we are not worthy of a job, right? So that's what the situation is. So after that we evolved, and we over the last 3-4 years after that, from 2001 to 2005, we started maturing our concept with a very lean money. I would say not lean startup, but the lean money, how we can conceptualize the concept in building the product. So over the period of time, what we learned that whenever you're trying to fail quick. If you take too much time to fail in your endeavor, you not only lose your dreams, sleeps, your aspirations, your motivation, everything goes for a toss. So what we did from 2005 onwards, we were more into the consulting side of the business, where we tried helping companies, because I used to be a chief architect for Cisco and Western Digital for their B2B delivery. So during those period, we used our concepts and how we can bring the whole concept of B2B into a much more civilized, simplified manner. And we were also helping them with some kind of CRM kind of evolution. Like we started with Siebel all the way to Salesforce, Zoho, what do you name it, we have it. But over the period of time, what we saw that even though the product was evolving, there was always a set of people who are always on the lookout for the next wave or next, I would say, disruptive solution. When you talk about the disruptive solution, it is always a good thing when you talk about scam or something in today's world, or smack, or what we call in India nowadays. But when you do all those things, the lean sometimes doesn't fit very well, just because whenever you're dealing with a customer for a B2B solution, they will say, show me the product, or show me how it will work, or show me what benefit I will get. So during this experience that we gained in the last 12-15 years, we built a product called Converge Enterprise last year. Within 6 months of its launch, we won the world's best CRM in SMB space. Today we are nominated as one of the most advanced CRM for the SMB space.
That's very interesting. So actually, there's a common line between what you said and what Vishwas was saying. So how Manash put it was saying that if you want to fail today. Yeah. What Vishwas said in validated learning, which is a fancier word probably for the same thing, But yes, there's an underlying statement which we're getting, and I think that's what we're going to deep dive into this next question that we're going to have. But before that, Girish, your experience in starting up this product, and did you have any philosophy or guidelines that you would probably want to share with people who are starting up this product story for themselves?
Hi. We started in 2007, so the lean philosophy and all is a little later than that. Unfortunately, we did not have a lot of hindsight. But looking back today in terms of what we did, I feel that we did a few things that was set up in the lean philosophy. To answer the first question, we had a basic idea, and we said we'll try it out, and if it works, we'll move forward. There was not too much of a scientific thinking. We did not have too many Excel files, dashboards, advanced tools to. It was more an entrepreneurial gut feeling that we went with. I don't know the merits of or demerits of that approach. Vishwas would not fully agree on that. I also don't think that you should just go about and take a blind guess. It should be to an extent a calculated risk if you are actually starting a business. This would be my advice from a little bit of a hindsight that I have. So what we essentially did was we knew that there was a payroll and that people would use the payroll, and we wanted to start a cloud offering because we said, how do I take the payroll and do a low-cost version of this so that people having 30, 40 employees would also be able to use it. And we did not know whether these people with 30, 40 employees would really need a payroll, right? So that was more the customer discovery phase for us. What we did is we started with a small pilot. We took one module, did some work on it, went to a few customers, right? And wanted to check out if there was traction. And we had told ourselves that if this did not work, then we would drop it and move forward. So that to a certain extent ties up with this lean startup philosophy, which says that you need to first validate your product. The first thing you need to do is not write the business plan, but see whether there is a problem and whether you can solve that problem. More importantly, whether somebody will pay you to solve that problem, right? So that's the critical thing that you'll need to do. In hindsight, it looks like we did that. So after this version was a success, about 60, 70 clients started using it. Then we went about the bigger job of rewriting the entire payroll, right? So that's our journey. We took about 2 years at that time to rewrite the entire software. Then we went back to the market again because we did have a good idea of what it would do for people, and then we went about making the sale. That's how we went about it. I can see
a lot of people agreeing to you there, so obviously they're connecting with what you're saying. So I have one more question to you as a follow-up question, right? Now you mentioned that you did this validated learning process, probably without actually putting as a methodology or tool, right? Without defining it, you did it in a sequential flow. But when a lot of us are looking at international markets, a lot of us are looking at a broader customer base, right? We've done very well for ourselves with a small set of customers. Now we want to scale this up to the next level. One, how do you go about this process of validated learning, right? How do I reach out to a broader mass of customer segment to really get the input? That's number one. Do you have thoughts on that? Number two, it's very important that you will not get a repeat chance probably to meet some of these customers. So your product has to have some level of maturity, right? It cannot be a very fundamental raw POC stage. It has to be more of a framework, right? What is your thought on these two aspects? One, how do you take it to a broader segment? Two, when is the right time to take it to a broader segment?
See, I would like to quote Seth Godin, somebody who is a fairly, very well-known exponent or proponent on the small business and small business marketing space. So the question I would like to answer by saying that the validation portion is you need to build a set of users who are really, really extremely happy and who have a wow experience with your product. That's the most critical thing that will need to be done, because it's extremely difficult in today's world to actually go and do a big bang marketing, right? Recently Freshdesk raised about $34 million, right? So if you look at Google today, everywhere, every page, every site, there's an ad from Freshdesk, from the $34 million that they have raised, right? It's extremely difficult for you as a startup to go and compete and get the word out like that. So the best way of getting word out is to have a few excited and very passionate customers talk about you. Okay? If you have done something really well for them, there's an extremely good chance that they will talk to more people about it. Okay? The first set of things that you can do is to, after your validation, is to get your existing customers excited enough to talk about it. I believe that is how you would build a good product. Because for somebody, you are extremely valuable. Okay? You have made sure that you have made a difference to their lives. Once you do that, okay, there is a lot of viral effect in terms of this ability to get the word out. So for a minimum traction, I would suggest this approach of taking and doing it with the first set of customers.
Great. Manash, like your thoughts on the same thing, because you have a very different kind of solution, right? So again, the question is, how do you validate your learning with a broader customer segment, right? How do you know you're on the right track? Also, as I said, the growth and revenue are not really metrics at this stage, right? I cannot measure myself by saying I have X $1 million revenue, because there could be that inflection point where you suddenly scale up, right? So how do you see the right time, right, you know, to be sure that you're on the right track, and how do you keep validating it with your customers, a broader market?
I think I totally second what Girish shared in his thoughts in terms of having those first few passionate customers, because these are the guys who will be your ambassadors. And whenever you're dealing with a B2B product, which is again, the sales cycles are a little longer than a normal B2C fancy. So here what we always have to look out is basically, is that value that you're offering to your customers, is the efficiency, or is it the productivity, or is it the utility that you're just adding to their life? And whenever we have any kind of product, because one good thing is that always start with maybe a couple of good touch points, which will be the unique selling point, whatever you have. Because it could be the simplicity in your interface, it could be the ubiquity of your productivity, or it could be something to do where you can add some more simplicity of how the process gathering can happen. So whenever you're doing that, just pick one of them, just one of them, and just expose that product to for some of your beta customers, or I would say early adopters of your sense. Just feel them out of how they react to that, and then start building on the top. Because today, when we deal with the VC communities or angel investors in today's world, the good thoughts are very limited, because there are a lot of companies around, a lot of noise around, but the real good companies who will really make it happen are very limited. So that way, it is also very important that not to look for funding as a lean company. I would say rather bootstrap initially, to understand that you have that passion, as well as you can bring that passion out to your customer, and then only you get to the next steps.
Great. So before I go to Vishwas, actually, he'll be able to best share with us, because he does this for product companies. He'll be able to tell us what's the right way and a framework to build. How many of us are really here looking for investment community help, support? Yeah, that's a lot of hands, right? Question is, Vishwas, now with that backdrop, where we all need investment community help, and we need to form a methodology and a framework to be able to get it right the first time probably. What is the best approach that you recommended as a best practice to your clients? How do you do this?
What was the question? What is the first thing?
So I'm saying in the backdrop, when you need funding, you cannot afford to go wrong. You need to show your customers, stakeholders the confidence. Right. You have to have an approach to your entire validated learning process. Right. I understand that there's a mechanism of framework and there's a mechanism of basic product to be ready. Yeah. How does this work? Can you elaborate on the step-by-step approach that you can share with them as the best practices? Right. So I think any time that you are trying to go to the market, there are a few steps that you need to take. This number one is you need to come up with the those 2 or 3 key features that you think that your customers are going to use the product. If you look at Facebook right now, there's so many features in it, but ultimately what do you exactly use? There will be 2 or 3 features which are going to mainly use, that is like posting, liking, sharing, maybe few things, and adding friends. So most of the products are successful because of those 1 or 2 things, key things that they do, right? So it's not every time that you can really pinpoint which are these features. Of course, that's not possible. But what is possible is following a good methodology to come up with the right kind of MVP, or what we call as a POC. I mean, these methodologies are same old. Okay, there's nothing new in it. It's just that the terminologies are new, right? So there's nothing new to it, basically. So
what is important is the right kind of user experience. How many of you guys are exposed to UX? User experience. Okay, just a few of guys, right? So user experience is very, very critical, right? How your particular customer is going to interact with your device, your website. How are they going to do a particular transaction? How it's like storytelling. Your product is like a storytelling. You need to hook your customer, and then you need to make them come back to you again, and all this through an amazing experience. And user experience doesn't mean that the product has to look very jazzy and stuff like that, right? It has to look very aesthetically pleasing. It has to have the right kind of minimalistic approach at this point in time that people take. Minimal number of clicks you need to do for a particular action that you need to take and stuff like that, right? So, and that is very, very important. And then you can convert that using a wireframe, more like a balsamic and stuff like that, and bring it on, create visuals and use certain new kind of techniques for the lean philosophy these days. You have something like proto.io, for example. Take your screens and you can put it in this tool. It's clickable. It's not a full product, but it's something that takes you through the entire user journey, what we call it, and you can show it to your customers to get feedback. Right?
I think that's the MVP, or the minimum viable product.
Yeah, it's a step. Fantastic. And you get some feedback, right? So this is one of the ways, right? And the second thing is, if it's a B2B product, it's very important for you that you need to have a pilot customer. It's so important, because what happens is you cannot build your product because of your own whims and fancies, right? So you think that, okay, you are building a product for a restaurant. You cannot sit in your home and think, man, maybe this is how it should work. This is the order taking mechanism. This is what it is. You will build, of course you will build it, but you go to the market and then they'll be like, man, this is not how it works. You go to a customer, basically you tell him, the first guy, that, man, I'm going to give you like 1 year free subscription. You just help me out right now. So you get the knowledge of what we call subject matter expertise. And then I'm going to bring my technology and this product is free for you, or whatever, right? Then once that guy says yes, I'm sure if you're passionate, you will definitely find this guy. Because if you cannot find that first customer, then it's better not to do it at all, right? So once you get that first customer, you go to the next restaurant and you tell him, I have this big guy who's already taken my product. I'm going to give you 50% off. Can you take, these are the features. This is my click, click, click. You have a prototype already. Do you think this is going to work for you? Or whatever. And that guy is, you're going to say, because you already have like a customer there, he's going to say yes, right? What I'm thinking, he's going to say yes. So when you have two customers, you go to the third guy and then you charge him. Tell me, the two big guys are already taking it. These are the features. Whatever those guys are going to make, I'm going to take their feedback and I'm going to build a product.
And that would be an iterative process.
Iterative process.
Building, measuring and learning.
Exactly. What are the big guys are going to ask? You're going to get their knowledge. Right. So, you better take it up, and then that is going to start paying. And then you create like an amazing product that is customer focused, customer centric, and that product will never fail because you have the intelligence of the customer with it.
Fantastic. So I'm sure we have a lot of questions also of how Girish and Manash probably really did this in real life, right? How was this building, measuring, learning that we're talking about, how was it really translated? But just given the interest of time, I think we'll have to stop this panel discussion. We are all going to be available offline and we can definitely have more Q&A sessions because this concept is definitely very interesting. What's important, how we really implement it to be able to drive our growth. So I'd like to thank all the panelists again for being here, and we'll definitely have more Q&A offline.
The speakers will be available during lunch for any Q&A that you may have. Sorry that we had to omit that. Nischal, can I ask you to please hand over some mementos to the speakers, please?